Hello, this is Pretty Guardian, and today we are going to be talking about Star Ocean: The Second Story R. This is a remake of the JRPG classic that came out on the PlayStation in 1999. My first experience with Star Ocean was probably around 2006 or 2007. With their third entry, Till the End of Time. I've played most of them since then, including their last entry called The Divine Force. Having missed the first two games, I was pretty excited to jump in and try this one out, and it did not disappoint. I played this game on the PlayStation, but it's also available on PC and the Nintendo Switch. This game was originally developed by Tri-Ace, but the remake was done by another studio, Gemdrops, which is led by Yuichiro Kito, who was credited as the battle programmer from the original game, and also worked on Valkyrie Profile Lenneth. Second Story R was remade in the HD 2D style similar to the famous Octopath Traveler, or the upcoming remake of Dragon Quest III, which is on my must-play list. And I absolutely love this style. It has such a clean UI, beautiful backgrounds and animations, and it both captures some of the magic of the original style of the game while making it modern and approachable. The game begins on the planet of Expel, where a mysterious glowing green comet called the Sorcery Globe crashes onto the planet. Right away, you're given a choice of which character you want to play the game as, and depending on your choice of Claude C. Kenny, who's a member of the Pan-Galactic Federation. This is an organization very similar to Starfleet from the Star Trek series. Or you can pick the character who I chose, Rena Lanford, and she's just a young girl from a small village in Expel who happens to be pretty good with healing magic. The other two characters I primarily stuck with were Celine, a beautiful symbologist sorceress, and Ashton, who was the cutie rogue of the group. The story and gameplay will largely be the same regardless of who you pick as your main character, but your choice does affect some minor cutscenes and also who is able to join your party later on. In combat, you get up to 4 party members at a time, and there are 13 party members available in total. You would actually have to do multiple playthroughs in order to experience playing with all 13 characters. The story would get a little bit repetitive doing it twice, but there is a new game plus mode, a little bit of endgame content, and lots of different potential endings. So if you're someone that likes to 100% your games, or maybe you're on a budget and want to get the most out of a game, then there's definitely some replayability there. It took me about 42 hours to beat. I did most of the side quests and took part in many of the activities in the game, but I did not try to get 100% out of everything. There was a lot of grinding in between story beats that padded out that time. I'm sure some people could complete it faster if they rushed the story or better at strategizing than me, but you can easily get more gameplay out of it if you wanted to. Circling back to the combat, Star Ocean is known for their real-time action combat, and that's what you get here. You can see enemies floating as purple ghosts on the overland map if they're higher level than you, or green ghosts if they're lower level. Running into them will trigger the combat. If you hit them from the back, then combat starts with them being staggered, but be careful because they can do the same thing to you. In the top right, you'll see icons for your party members along with their health and mana. You control one character at a time, with the rest being controlled by AI, but you can swap between them. There are magic spells you can activate along with special abilities for the melee fighters. In the menus, you have items for healing and other effects. A couple of mechanics that were more unique to this game can be found on the lower portion of the screen. On the bottom left, you can press the directional keys to summon characters, either as special summons from popular franchise characters or other reserved party members who will jump in and do a special attack that you set for them. On the bottom right is a gauge that fills up from fighting and defeating enemies. It goes from 0 to 300, and you get different buffs as it increases. These buffs can also be customized as you unlock different party formations down the road. These buffs were a critical part of strategy for me. For example, there was a boss fight where I was getting absolutely decimated by them repeatedly poisoning me or turning me to stone. Yes, I had spells to cure me and items to cure me, but I could not keep up with how fast they were hitting me and my party with these abilities. Luckily, there was a formation that gave me immunity to these status effects. So that's definitely something to pay attention to if you find yourself hitting a wall in a fight. The game has different difficulty levels you can select at the beginning and then adjust later on if you want. I played most of the game on the normal difficulty and died more than a few times, but it was still relatively easy to beat a challenging fight just by strategizing a little or grinding a few levels. After fights, you get experience, money, and SP and BP that can be spent on upgrading your skills and perks. In the menus, there's a fairly long perk tree and lots of skills for you to spend these points on. These points are freely available, but it's worth thinking about what you want to prioritize on specific characters. For example, Rena and Celine both benefit tremendously from hastened speech, which will speed up the casting time of your spells, while Ashton and Claude wouldn't really benefit from this because they're not spellcasters, so it would be better to prioritize something else for them. One of the big side activities in the game is their private action system. With this system, you can separate from your party members, and then you get to go and have private interactions with them. Basically little cutscenes where you get to talk to them and make small character choices that boosts your friendship levels with those characters. This can unlock new abilities, score you some new items, but also depending on your friendship level, there are 99 potential endings that you can get in the game. You might consider this good for replayability. It's one of those things that sounds intriguing on paper, but in practice, the endings aren't really a meaningful change to the game. I certainly wouldn't replay the game for them. The game also has a number of crafting and field skills you can engage with. Fishing was one that I really enjoyed. Most areas have fishing spots where you can catch different fish. There's a vendor later on who will reward you for catching different types of fish. Cooking was another one that I did a lot, where you can use different groceries to make food that will buff your party. You can make gear, items, and lots of other stuff, so it's definitely taking a look and seeing what interests you. The last thing that I wanted to comment on about this game before we wrap up this review is the soundtrack. So with the original game, a lot of those original sound files were lost. And so the maestro behind the soundtrack of this game, Matoi Sakuraba, actually had to go back, listen to it, and then recreate those tracks by ear. And so there's definitely some tracks that you can tell are different from the original soundtrack, but overall, it is a very good musical score. There's lots of great battle themes and more emotional songs that kind of underpin the gameplay of this game and just kind of help to elevate it. For me, the soundtrack didn't stand out as an especially amazing one in the grand scheme of games, but I think that the goal of a good soundtrack isn't necessarily to stand out in a video game, so that's not a detractor to me at all. In terms of noticeable bugs and crashes, I had a perfect gameplay experience from beginning to end. This is worth commenting on because it was definitely not the case with the Divine Force. If I were to be critical of the game, I would probably point out how thin the plot is. The story starts out with something about Claude being the prophesied warrior of light, but it drops that a couple of hours in, and we're just kind of moved from one area to the next in a way that makes sense only because we know it's a video game. Most of the characters don't really have an arc or much development, and even after just beating the game, I couldn't tell you a single name of any of the villains. I'm also routinely disappointed by most of the Star Ocean games for not giving us more outer space exploration or visiting of different planets. Other games in the series are like this too, with Star Ocean: The Last Hope being almost an outlier. But for a game called Star Ocean, we spend very little time in space. I don't think it's worth the $50 they're asking for because of the dated graphics and gameplay. The fact that it's a remake, they didn't give us a whole lot that was new, and they had an outline for everything that was done already. The scope of the project was just really narrow compared to a lot of modern RPGs. It's still a great game, I definitely enjoyed myself, and would easily recommend it for people who are fans of the genre. If you like those old school pixel style RPGs like Octopath Traveler or Chained Echoes, then this one is for you. For everyone else, check out the demo and make sure it's something you'll like, and don't just ride the hype train. Good news is that they're working on remaking the other games in the Star Ocean series too. I think I could die happy if I got to replay a modern version of Star Ocean till the end of time. Thank you so much for watching along today. Please jump in the comments section and let me know what games you're looking forward to playing. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe because that helps me to grow my channel and you'll be the first to know when I release cool new videos. Anyways, thanks again, and I will see you in the next one.